go ahead and call the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners June 12th special meeting budget work session for FY26 to order. Again, the purpose of this meeting is to continue to work our way through the budget as part of work session so that we can move to a final approved budget before the end of June with a goal of the 19th of June. At this time, I just want to remind people that we are streaming live on our YouTube page so that the constituents have an opportunity to plug into these. And just want to remind those in the room that we are live. At this time, I will move to invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I will ask Vice Chairwoman Jones to provide invocation and pledge.
For those that can, please stand. Dear Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this day, and we thank you for this evening. We ask that you give us guidance and wisdom, and that you allow us to make choices and decisions for the greater good of our community. We thank you for fellowship. We thank you to allow us to serve together. We ask that you protect all those at Fort Bragg and soldiers around the world, for we appreciate our veterans on our active duty and our first responders, and we appreciate all those that serve in every capacity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we are starting about an hour and a half behind due to an extended agenda session and closed session. Board, I want to be respectful of the day that we've already had, but we also have a budget process to get through. Let's look to get through items 3 and 4, and then we'll take a consensus on where we are. If you need to take a break during this, you can ask for recess. If not, if you need to take a break, you can just ask for a recess, and we'll grant that. One other point, if we can just get a roll-up, so far we've got a working list of what I would call commissioner requests, other bodies sometimes calling parking lot issues, but there's a series of, for example, we asked to see the $103 million on the education side, the debt model on the education. So if we can get a working list of all those items, so as we move to our final meeting, that we can make sure we work through all of those. If somebody can provide us that that would be great.
I'll have it ready for you tomorrow.
Okay.
And all the requests are made?
And all the requests that everybody made. So at this time, we'll go ahead and move to item 3, special funds and enterprise funds. County Manager Greer.
Yes, I'm turning this over to Deborah Shaw, Budget and Performance Director. We'll follow the same format that we followed in previous meetings, and I'll turn it over to Deborah.
Good evening, Chairman and County Commissioners.
Good evening.
We'll be moving over into the special revenue and enterprise funds. As shown on the slide, the county maintains special revenue funds representing funds 200.
We're going to let somebody tell us the page.
Oh, what page?
84. Thank you.
Representing funds 200 through 285. Special revenue funds are used to account for the proceeds of specific revenue sources other than a special assessments, expendable trust, or major capital projects that are legally restricted to expenditures for that specific purpose. And again, on the special revenue funds, for adoption or recommended, the revenues have to equal the expenditures. If you have any questions, if there's something specific that you would like to speak on, my team will be more than happy to help me answer.
Commissioners, questions on the special revenue funds? Commissioners, any questions on special revenues fund? I'll start while people are looking. Line 201, the intergovernmental fund. What is contained in that line?
Okay, my staff, will someone answer? Okay.
It contains the concealed weapon permits and the mayor's license fees. The concealed weapon, is $90 for the permit. So they would recommend give back to the state $45 if it's a new permit. is $90, so they get 45. And then for a renewal, it is 45 to 40, so they give 40 back to the state for the renewal.
And that's line 201,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Supplemental.
$2.5 million?
Yes. Do you want to break that down? Can someone go in there and tell what the exact amounts are?
That's okay.
Because whatever we've got to have the budget there for them to be able to cut the money back to the state.
Okay. And then my next question, Rose Pond grant, that 501 will roll into 2026?
That will be brought as a reappropriation, yes, sir.
And we'll do that in the August, as we discussed previously.
August, September, October timeframe, yes, sir.
And then the last question, 269 Emergency Rental Assistance Fund, that was a COVID activity that we no longer do, and so there's not additional funding, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions on the special revenue funds? Commissioner Tyson, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fund 200,
Yes, that's the food and beverage.
walk us through the dip from, it looks like from 23 to 25, and it remained pretty consistent.
I was hoping, at your pleasure, I was hoping to kind of talk about food and beverage when I got over to the Crown, because I wanted to kind of show the big picture of how everything works together. Is that okay?
Are you okay?
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions?
And I do want to say on Fund 220, the special revenue, the special fire district fund, the recommended fund that you're seeing didn't include the updated values. With the updated values, it's going to be estimated around $23,380,038. And also for the recreation fund, the recommended fund with updated estimated values was around $10,045,702. Because that would be an
250, okay.
because that would be an adjustment coming through. So I did not want y'all to ask me why was I not transparent at that during the budget discussions.
How much was that?
For the recreation, $10,045,702.
Thank you.
So explain that again.
What happened was when the staff, they were using the old values,
I got you.
there's been a change in staff.
Commissioner Talley.
I have a quick question. For Fund 275, the Transit Planning Fund, is that attached to FAMPA?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Last question for me is just, I was trying to turn it over to other commissioners. 244, the SCIF Homeless Grant Fund. So the 269 that's projected is the remaining balance based on what's already been paid for the in-house support center out of that fund, correct?
We were told that on the year-end projection, most of that would be paid. Is that correct, staff? On the year-end projection?
Fund 244.
Yes. Yes. That was what the projection is now. If money's left, it'll be brought back as a reappropriation in August, September, October.
How much money is in it right now?
As far as the actual, they spent $107,346.63
For this year.
for this year.
And we've had prior.
And the balance is what?
You might need to go to account inquiry on get out of central budget, go to account.
But it should not get down to 269, 685. If we've only spent $100,000, it should not be an additional expenditure until after next week, if they
Clarence, I Denise found it. She said that is what the available balance is, the $269,685.
So everything's been spent up to there.
okay.
Commissioner, Vice Chairman Jones, and then Commissioner Tyson for round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reference to the inmate welfare fund 207,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
can you go over that for me for a minute, please?
This,
I know it's
there's-
4, but did it go up or down? My question.
it went about from 467 down to 455, and what it is that they may not have identified any capital expenditures, like a washing machine that might have broke, and if so, they might bring that back. This is the best that they could, give us right now. But that's the telephone commissions. Anything else in there?
For the inmates, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, ladies, I shouldn't ask that question, I'm sorry.
Anything else, Vice Chairman? Commissioner Tyson, you recognize round two.
Any of the funds that we didn't cover previously, obviously some of them we did, like the recreation fund where we had a briefing on that. Any of the funds that would have FTEs tied into it, was there any change in that staffing level that accounted for any of that budgetary change? Like community development fund or anything like that?
No, because these are kind of standalone funds. If there's any positions, they would be referenced in these actual funds, not in the general fund. So was there any positions that have been picked up in the other funds? No.
Staffing was the same.
Except for the opioids, the opioid level, we've got some staff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Jones, round two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is there no fundings then? Am I reading this correct? 253, the Rhodes Pond grant?
Because it's going to be a reappropriation, because when it was I think it was in 23 or 24, the money came through, and then so this is on the revenue side, so it failed to fund balance, and so we'll bring it back in August, September, October to ask for the reappropriation for the remaining funds that's left.
Okay, thank you. And
Go ahead.
And do you know estimate of what that amount would be that we're going to be asking for at that time? Just curious.
It was around 269,000 was available.
Okay.
Is that all years? You got to look at all years and add together, because that's not on a multi-year fund.
Anything else? Commissioners, any other questions? One other and I'm sure we'll see it, 266, Community Development Home Fund, so that's a fund balance going into 2026, that we're going to look to have a plan on how we're spending that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's part of,
Yes, sir. And so we're in the process of also doing our consolidated plan, and so we'll bring that back in August.
and I'll address that 4.1 million.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions on special revenue funds? All right, hearing none, we will move forward to solid waste funds.
Well, I was going to go into the enterprise
Okay.
funds, if that's okay.
Not on our sheet.
I kind of wanted to walk through the Crown Complex. Is that okay?
Yes, I just was trying to match up to our agenda.
Oh, okay,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
It's okay, go ahead, move forward.
Okay.
You're good,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay.
Are we going to get into the debt model then with the Crown?
No, because this is just the Crown Fund,
Okay.
not anything dealing with debt
All right.
or anything.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, the Crown Complex Fund, again, must balance. So 600. Let's begin with how was the $7.2 million recommended. First, the budget provided by OVG is budgeted in the amount of approximately $5.8 million. Then, there was a pre-opening consulting agreement in the amount of $60,000 that I have to budget. Then the insurance that the county pays, because that's a county building, in the amount of $177,327. Then the final piece would be the Crown recommended CIP in the amount of $1,175,000. So I have to budget all of that into that fund 600. So not as much food and beverage money is required for the operations, so less money was transferred from the food and beverage this year. Again, this has to be balanced, so the revenue would be the interest income in the amount of $246,500, and the transfer from the food and beverage in the amount of $6,978,332. Then I have the Crown debt, which is $934,000. Okay, I'm sorry, I've lost.
No, it's
Okay.
fine. It's just, we're just rattling through numbers.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And when we're getting in depth on a fund like this, and we're trying to highlight, it'd be good to just break that out and have a snapshot so we're looking at it.
Okay.
I'm looking at it all, we're all hastily trying to write down 5 million, this,
Okay.
that, this, to understand so we can see if we have any questions. So I think that's the point. I appreciate the information, that just, go ahead. That's why I was shaking my head, because I'm going to turn around and ask for a breakdown of the Crown Complex Fund after this meeting.
Okay, okay.
79.
And 85.
Yeah.
The two.
Go ahead.
The Crown debt, which is $934,229, which will be seen in the debt slide for the Crown. Again, this fund has to balance, so the revenue is to transfer for the debt from the Crown Motel in the amount of $934,229. I know the expense will be $934,229 to transfer to the Crown debt. On the Crown Motel Fund, the revenue for the occupancy tax comes from the budgeted number from the TDA board. The occupancy revenue being recommended is more than what the debt is needed to be paid from the debt service. Therefore, the difference is added to fund balance. And also, there's interest income. And I'll be more than happy to do an Excel spreadsheet.
No, I don't need a spreadsheet. Questions on the Crown Complex Fund and the Enterprise Fund for the Crown? Give us 1 second, just to... Commissioner Tyson.
Thank you. So the CIF, specifically with the Crown,
Bless you.
Sorry.
that's okay.
I'm going to try to pull that up right here.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
page 80. in-
Yeah, it's right here. Okay.
Kind of the priority of those capital projects on this 5-year plan,
Yes.
was that done in consultation with OVG?
Yes.
How did we come up with that?
Prior employees that were here met with OVG and walked through this with the general manager.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Patel.
I do. I have one question on the Crown CIP items.
Okay.
I know at the commission meeting, they were rolling some of these costs into their operating budget. So is that accounted for?
This does go into their operating budget to help operate the Crown. Remember, I have to help transfer from the food and beverage.
Okay.
So this gets budgeted into their operations, just like the 5.8 that OVG is going to use this year. So whatever's left, because it's got the balance, I've got to transfer from the food and beverage. And I'm not touching the debt. The debt is coming from the hotel, the motel tax, which is coming from TDA.
I got you.
Any other questions on Crown Event Enterprise Fund? Real quick, just to confirm, I think we discussed it on the operating expenses on the Crown. The new Crown Event Center was not factored in the
No, sir.
operating expenses. Okay.
No.
Anything else, Commissioners? Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. Thank you.
Let's go back. Okay, so next we have Norcrest, if we're going down in line, and that is the, they've got some CIP included in the FY 2026 recommended budget in the amount of $665,440. This year's year-end projections is the utilities were projected to be higher, and also $400,000 was projected to be used from the ARPA dollars that was transferred in the amount of $1,310,000. Do I? I'm sweating. It's hot up here. It's hot up here.
Questions on Norcrest Water and Sewer? Are we going to look at the CIP for that?
Yes, I can go ahead and do all of it
All right.
together.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is it hot in here?
Yes, it's.
I mean, this council is
I
gone.
just turned it down.
It's not just you, Ms. Shaw. You're fine. You're doing great. We appreciate you.
Okay. So Kelly Hills has some CIP included this year, and that's the manhole rehabilitation project. Amy Hall is here if you have any questions. Again, we have the Norcrest, and that's a flow monitoring study of $25,440, and the new generators, all lift stations of $640,000. Then we have Overhill's CIP, which is $33,100. And then there was nothing budgeted in the CIP for the South Point. Do I have any questions Amy or Amanda can answer? Specific details?
Commissioners, questions on the water and sewer CIP or the fund? Nothing projected for Southport? We don't have any CIP for Southport?
Should have something in for South Point.
Nothing that was brought over. For
807?
So it's,
27, 28.
but nothing for 26.
I had 69.5 for 26 that I sent over to Ashley. We put in the book.
We all met together, but we can make an adjustment. We can make an adjustment, but no.
is it the water meter replacement?
Yes, yes, yes.
It's showing at 27.
7 is
We need to move
what.
it to 26.
Just move it back.
Yeah, we can move it back.
Move it back.
How does that, to balance that out then?
We'll balance it out.
Okay. Any other questions on CIP? Or, I'm sorry, water and sewer CIP? Or the funds? All right, hearing none, we can keep moving.
Is there any other, in the internal service funds, Robin is here, our chief financial officer. Her department kind of handles the internal service funds if there's any questions regarding those.
Go back to the Commissioners, any questions on the internal service funds? Get to that page.
Can you,
Go ahead, Basha.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you go back to miscellaneous? And just, I think I seen a line that said miscellaneous.
You mean on the CIP?
Yes.
Okay, let me go back to CIP. Yes, ma'am, let me go there.
I just seen it. It said miscellaneous.
I don't see anything.
Maybe not. I thought it said miscellaneous. It was on the other side.
Commissioners, any other questions on internal service funds? Attorney Morfitt, all you need is $100,000. Are you sure? Commissioner Patel.
I just wanted to ask for the 801 fund, the group insurance fund. It looks like there's a pretty large increase from 36.6 million in FY25 to 44 million for 26. Could you explain that?
Robin, would you like to explain that? It's the 801, the group insurance that's handled in down in finance.
You should put her up at a table so she can have
It's the increase in the changes of the new plan that we agreed upon. So
It's the health insurance
the health insurance right there.
for employees and commissioners and former employees.
former commissioners.
Just for sake of time, can you email out the breakdown of Fund 801 to everyone?
I can send that, I'll send it.
Thank you.
And just on that same line of thought, so when we budgeted employees, we budgeted their
10,800.
insurance costs as well, so it's captured there.
It's captured in the general fund, but we'd have to do a transfer over there
Correct.
because, yes, $10,850
Per.
per budgeted position. Yes.
And that was one of the questions that we had was what was that impact if you didn't fund the healthcare, how would it change the insurance rates? Or does it? What was the impact on that? That was a question we had earlier as a commissioner request. Anything else on internal service funds? Commissioner Tyson?
Just one quick question, and I didn't see it where the fees were listed in our proposed budget, but our solid waste fund, did we propose to increase on the 130 annually on the tax bill as well? I didn't see that in the fee structure.
In the recommended book, we only show what the proposed changes are, and for solid waste, that would be in their document, but $130 per household is budgeted, and that it is the fee for this
Stay
year.
the same as 25?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Page 82, the fee changes for solid waste are listed in the book.
Are we going to speak to the solid waste fees now?
Yes.
or- okay.
When we got to solid waste, I was
Okay.
going to do all this.
All right, anything else on internal service? So now we're moving to solid waste.
Solid waste is an enterprise fund, and all county homeowners pay $130 solid waste user fee. It's billed annually on their tax bill. Fund balance was appropriated this year of approximately $2.3 million. The CIP for solid waste totaled $3,191,400. The director of solid waste was able to absorb some of this amount within her operating budget so that the entire amount wasn't having to be appropriated. If there's any specific lines, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Vice Chairman Jones, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's where I see miscellaneous. Can you elaborate that for me? It's the sixth one down, categories?
Yes, I sure will.
That's where-
Miscellaneous is the
miscellaneous.
interest income, environmental enforcement, and any miscellaneous income, and just like something that they may, an enforcement fee would go there, the interest that they're earning in the account, that would go there.
Okay, that's why there's an increase
Yes.
there, okay. I know I've seen that on here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions on solid waste funds? Commissioner Patel?
Never mind, I'll take that back.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yeah, just one quick question. The
Okay.
capital outlay, I see the year projection was at $4 million for this current fiscal year, but our adopted budget was $667. I did see you bumped it up a little bit, which is good, but I guess my question is the 1.3 going to be sufficient? Or given some of what we've been briefed in our committee meetings, or would we expect that to change?
Based on the year-end projections, those were projects that was reappropriated from a previous year, so you're not seeing the revised budget. And then for the recommended CIP, it's $3 million and some, but $2 million of that is captured in the other operating because it's a contracted services. So the capital outlay is the difference.
I got you, that makes sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions, commissioners, on solid waste? As we look at, are you going to go to the fee schedule, or we're going to talk the fee schedule? Or are you still getting to that?
I was going to get, but that's fine. We can go on to that.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Solid waste fee changes. Amanda, would you like to come up here and speak on solid waste fee changes?
Absolutely.
So we are recommending increases in our tipping fees. We are currently actively mining out the Bellfield and sending it to Sampson County. As we start the construction of the transfer station, we will be hauling garbage from the transfer station. Our tipping fee for GFL is governed by our contract with GFL. And our tipping fee this year was $45 a ton. Our tipping fee next year based on CPI is going to be $46.94 per ton. That was based on a 4.3% increase from water, sewer, trash, and garbage sub-index. And that was actually based on, I want to say that was December, and that was effective May 1st. So what's interesting about solid waste fees is that about 70% of our incoming waste stream is covered under the cost of the availability fee, and a tipping fee is typically only assessed to about 30% of the garbage coming into Ann Street. And so that tipping fee is increasing to be in line with what we are paying GFL. Now for C&D, 100% of the incoming waste is charged. That's not covered under availability fees. Is that helpful?
Commissioner Tyson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Ms. Lee, just a quick question, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm not as educated on solid waste as you are, but I'm hoping that you can help me with this. Would that cover intergovernmental transfers of waste in that fee as well, or do we have a separate local agreement on how those fees are structured for the disposal of those?
Okay, so let's define intergovernmental. You're not talking about interdepartmental with the county. You're talking intergovernmental, meaning like the towns?
Or the city of Fayetteville, if that's included or not?
Okay, sure, I'll be glad to describe that. So, as I said earlier, only about 30% of the garbage coming into Ann Street is assessed a fee. And the reason that percentage is so low is because all the stuff that comes in the residential collection trucks from our towns, with the exception of Spring Lake, because they do not pay an availability fee. They don't pay to dump into our landfill. that cost is in the availability fee. So the people that pay even though okay, so that's all the towns with the exception of Spring Lake do not pay a tipping fee. But our private haulers that pick up residential debris do not pay a tipping fee either. So what we collect, a tipping fee from the city of Fayetteville, we do collect some tipping fees. That's for bulky items like furniture, if they're doing a mass cleanup, if it's anything out of if it's not residential household garbage. We also do not charge the city of Fayetteville for debris that comes into Wilkes Road because the availability fee covers that cost as well. So they only pay for limbs that are larger than 3 inches in diameter and 3 feet long. And even on what we call the grapple trucks, they only pay for half of the cost of that because it's assumed that half of the volume of that is less than that and half is more.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. So with this availability fee, is that something that your department reassesses on an annual basis, or do we have a long-term contract that we're paying? Kind of walk us through that structure and how that pricing may be subject to adjustment.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So we did do some big adjustments back in over the past couple years. We did an increase to $74 a household back in, let's see, this was in the FY24 budget. And we were looking at a historical shortfall in revenues in the solid waste fund balance. We went back to 2019 and we were typically had a shortfall of around close to, the average was 2.8 million a year. So we did an adjustment to cover for that shortfall. Then we did an increase also for the transfer station. The rate for the transfer station was calculated at $43 per household. And that was looking at the projected cost of the transfer station and the capital cost of the transfer station and the operating cost of the transfer station. Wilkes Road, we had a $3 per household increase in FY24. So it was $3 plus the $43 for the transfer station, plus the increase of $28 per household to account for the shortfalls. Then the jump from 74 to 130 was just a function of how much we were paying to haul debris out to Sampson County. So it is assessed annually. We did not have any increases this year because we had those increases last year when we entered into the GFL contract. But we are proposing increases in the tipping fees because we don't want our tipping fees to be out of line with the transfer station in town or other counties where we're getting other people traveling into our county to bring their garbage.
So Ms. Lee, as we look at that kind of picture as a whole, those fees you adjust on an annual basis, it sounds like, if they need to be adjusted, but everything's reviewed.
Correct, it is reviewed, yes.
And then the collection mechanism would be that $130 fee that's on the solid waste tax bill. Is
Yes.
that where that comes from?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just have one, and this goes to the credit card processing fee, which is going to be in the red particularly. Do we have a minimum of what you can, how much you can do? Because you get charged no matter whether it's could I go over there and shred, it might be $5. So I pay the $5, but somebody might use a card, especially these
That
young
is
kids.
correct.
So is there a minimum that we don't go below? Because otherwise it costs you money. Because even if you increase it to 3%, you know, if somebody's paying $4, $5 on that, and our fee is much higher than that. So are we going to set that, Mr. Manager, or to, you know?
I prefer to.
Okay, so the way we came up with the 3% was we looked at all the charges.
I don't have a problem with the 3%.
Okay.
It's, what you can pay by credit card. Is it, yeah,
Yeah, we don't have a minimum charge. If they come in and it's a $2 charge, we'll put $2 charge on their debit card.
but your processing fee is how much?
So our processing fee, the 3%, that's where I was going. We looked at all transactions with credit cards and we did an average across all transactions. But we have been grappling with that concept of, do we have a minimum credit charge? Yes, we have been. It's a good point, and it's one we're not sure how to address.
I got you.
Commissioner Patel and Commissioner Tyson.
Do you, I don't know who does our merchant processing for our credit cards, but couldn't we just pull the records and see what the invoices are, the average, and then?
Yes, and that's how we came up with the 3%, because
Right,
it
the
is
3%.
variable. It's not a flat 3%. It is like, yeah.
I'm speaking more to Commissioner Adams' point to see what the minimum might
Oh,
be.
he's trying to see the rate.
Okay, yeah.
3%, I think. is
Yeah, we can
industry
share that
average.
information. We can look at that.
Because it's different per card.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we take American Express?
No.
No, that's fine.
No, not for the cards, not for the cards, for the actual,
The PCI, I got you.
no, not for, because I know that the 3% is a 3%. And that, I mean, if we took all American Express, it'd probably be higher, but my point is, if we know that 80% or 85% of our,
I got you.
yeah, okay.
I got you. Where the range is,
Yeah.
where the fee.
Right, there are tiers, there are certain things, that they're at different levels.
Okay.
And we chose to go with an average to recommend this 3%, but if you'd like for us to take a deeper dive into that, we certainly can.
Commissioner Tyson, recommend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One simple thing, and I like what Commissioner Adams had to say, because I could see where that would be an issue. But one thing we could propose is, if it's below a certain amount, we just charge a flat rate, and then if it's above that amount, we just charge the 3%. So if it's below 25, we charge, a $5 convenience fee, whatever it is, and then if it's above that, then it's the 3%.
We've talked about that as well. We do have a $20 flat rate for a pickup load, a $10 flat rate for a single bulky item, and we talked about just having a minimum charge. I've seen some transfer stations that it's like a $7 minimum. If your charge was like $2, you're still going to charge you $7. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, other questions on solid waste? So, real quick, our build down and most of our capital is built on fees, correct?
Most of our capital outlay is based on fees. So historically, we have used capital outlay from fund balance, not from operating fees. But this year, we're proposing to look at the audit to see where we come in with our revenues and to define our capital outlay expenditures.
I guess what I'm asking is based on the needs that we see with our landfill, the expansion that we need to do, that we're going to have to look at a capital outlay for that that's going to exceed our waste fees. So how are we
Correct.
projecting to get to that capital growth that we're going to need, and how are we going to fund it?
Right, so you're looking for long-term projections for the fund with the scheduled fees in terms of next year, we're building the $2 million cell, and then we're going to build the baby cell, and then 5 years later, we're going to build another cell. And we do need to build out that model to look at those projections.
So, and I say that because what I want to be careful we do is not put it on the backs of the users, understanding there's some pass-through costs because of the way we're set up. But as we build that out, that we need to look, as we're getting ready to look at debt model and other things, we've got to look at, and I get it's an enterprise fund, but we've got to make sure that we've got that projected capital or debt to cover the expansion that we know we have to have, and we're doing it in a different way than just year after year after year growth.
Yes, I think that is wise to look at a 10 to 20 year projection, at least for the life of the Bellfield. We can look at, estimate the timelines for those new cells and make sure that we're collecting revenue so that we are pay-as-you-go.
Commissioners, any other questions on solid waste? Okay. Thank you.
Again, this is the debt service for the Crown for FY 2026. And then also the water and sewer debt of $124,162.
Any questions on the debt? We went through the CIP for the water and sewer and the Crown, and that was all that I have.
Commissioners, any questions or anything you need to circle back on? So we covered special revenue funds, solid waste funds, water and sewer funds, as well as the CIPs associated with them. All right, so I move to the ARP funds.
Ty, do we have a page numbers? Is
There
it,
are no page
Yeah,
numbers.
there's no
I have a presentation. Danny. I had a PowerPoint open. Did it close? I gotta get to the, oh, okay. I gotta get to the meeting support. This one? Okay, there you go. Thank you. And so, while I'm queuing this up, Commissioners, I'll just state that you're not going to see any specific ARPA information in the recommended budget because the ARPA project is budgeted as a multi-year fund, but there are dollars that have come from ARPA in free capacity because they were in their free capacity. Let me see, where? There it is. Thank you.
Worked so hard on it.
So, good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good evening.
So I'm just going to provide some information about the county's American Rescue Plan, state and local fiscal recovery funds, as a mouthful, and give a brief and high-level background on how we arrived at our current available amounts from a budgetary and expense perspective. And so just very brief, I know that we're streaming, so I just wanted to say this really quick. So as you're aware, the county received a total of $65,160,000 $168,690 from U.S. Treasury to cover eligible expenditures incurred between March 3rd, 2021 and December 31st, 2024. All funds had to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and they must be expended by December 31st, 2026. And an obligation is defined as a contract, a subaward, purchase order for goods or services, or an interlocal or interagency agreement like an MOU or MOA. So I know this is kind of small, but I'll briefly go through this. So the Board of Commissioners ultimately allocated funding to 11 distinct projects. Those projects were reimbursement to the general fund for COVID-19 vaccinations for county employees, reimbursement of the general fund for COVID-19 testing for county employees, reimbursement of the general fund for medical expenses incurred by county employees for treatment related to or exacerbated by COVID-19, a small business program in which we assisted 38 businesses in phase 1 and 14 businesses in phase 2, totaling 52 businesses assisted, provided rental and utility assistance to 146 individuals. That's about $3,300 and some change on average per individual. Provided subaward and funding to Fayetteville Technical Community College for their Hope Opportunity Prosperity Through Education program, which provides classes for LMI individuals related to in-demand trades. The county created a pilot internship program that was named Ignite, which was administered through the American Rescue Plan funds as a pilot program, but is now administered through the general fund with the use of freed up capacity dollars. The board approved a capital project budget ordinance for the Grays Creek Water and Sewer Phase 1 construction project. Provided a broadband funding match for the GREAT grant. Covered the salary and fringe costs for up to 100 general fund employees hired between March 2nd, 2021 and December 31st, 2024. I'll talk about that a little bit more. And covered the salary and fringe costs of Sheriff's Office employees for 7 pay periods to cover the revenue replacement allocation. I'll talk about that some more as well. And you'll notice that I've highlighted in yellow the figures for the public sector capacity and the revenue replacement, as these dollars were transferred to the general fund to cover salary and fringe expenses. So there were 2 pots of funds that were considered freed up capacity, and the first was revenue replacement. Local governments were given 2 options in which they could claim revenue replacement, and Cumberland County chose to utilize option 1, which allowed local governments to expend up to $10 million in its ARPA funds. This option could be utilized by local governments without having to further demonstrate a loss in revenue, while option 2 required a formula to determine revenue loss. We determined that option 1 was the most beneficial for Cumberland County. The funds were required to be utilized for a general government service, and the U.S. Treasury provided a list of services that met the requirement. We elected to utilize the funds to cover the salary and benefits for public safety staff, which were employees of the Sheriff's Office that met this requirement. And that's where the first freed up capacity dollars came into the general fund. And so you'll see this here. ARPA reporting code 6.1 revenue replacement had a total budget of $10 million for the life of the ARPA grant project ordinance. In fiscal year 2023, the board approved $8.2 million in retention incentives that were paid to regular county employees over the course of 3 pay periods: July 2022, December 2022, and June 2023. Employees had to be employed prior to June 2022 and remain in service to receive retention incentives, or be employed prior to November 2022 to receive the final June 2023 payment. The remaining $1.8 million was allocated to an emergency generator project. For fiscal year 2025, the revised budget for the project is $1,684,050. Expenses and encumbrances total $191,150, and the available budget remaining is $1,492,900. ARPA funds also generate, I stuck that on the bottom, ARPA funds also generate interest, and to date, we have booked interest in the amount of $715,317, and this is what is currently budgeted, but will increase when the interest is updated. U.S. Treasury has not placed any stipulations on the use of interest income, and it may be utilized for any purposes for which a local government can expend funds. The other freed capacity allocation comes from the county's pre-pandemic capacity. This funding authorization is unique to Cumberland County or any local government that chooses to utilize this particular provision. In the U.S. Treasury's final rule, two options were provided. Option one required the local government to assess the number of budgeted positions prior to COVID-19 and were subsequently unfunded and also provided a provision to refund those positions or re-budget for those positions, meaning that the positions had to be the same regardless of who the employee was in the position. The county utilized option two, which allowed local governments to identify their level of budgeted FTEs as of January 27, 2020, apply a growth adjustment factor, and assess that figure against the level of budgeted positions on March 3rd, 2021. This adjustment factor is then applied to a point in time, which typically is the turn of the fiscal year, which is when we normally, the board normally will create, unfund, partially fund, or abolish positions. And so you'll see the numbers here. That is ARP reporting code 3.2, public sector capacity, and we had a total budget of $38,605,663 for the life of the ARPA grant project ordinance. But looking at the general fund, we accounted for what was already expended in fiscal years 23 and 24. Those expenditures totaled $3,112,801. So the revised budget for fiscal year 2025 was and now that's on the next slide, you'll see it, $35,492,862. And you will notice that on this screen, it shows available funds in the amount of $32,172,547.16. This is less what has already been spent and encumbered for the FY 2025 fiscal year, $3,320,314.84. What also needs to be accounted for is what has been included as revenue from the ARPA grant project ordinance. As of June 6, 2025 pay period, actual available revenue for expenditure totals $28,938,343.69, leaving a remainder of $3,234,203.47 still needed in revenue, and I'm projecting that we will reconcile those revenues by the first pay period in November of this year. And I just want to say this, so I don't think I said it yet. These projections are directly tied to the number of budgeted positions that we have at any given time. So this slide shows the various projects funded with the use of general fund freed capacity from the 3.2, so that $38 million I was talking about, not the $10 million, that's the generator in the employee retention program. I do want to mention, as you view the projects, that the board will be considering Budget Ordinance Amendment B25008 at your June 16, 2025 meeting to fund a farmers small business grant program in the amount of $1 million. So you'll see that's why there's a line there. I have a line there, but hasn't posted yet because it hasn't been approved. And so that project is recommended to be, so that project will post on Monday if the board sees fit to approve it. Let me see. Also, there is $860,000 that was approved for the START project, and budget has already included that in the FY 26.
It's going to be an adjustment. Sheet.
And so that's why, and so you'll see it, but I had to account for that being an adjustment, and so taking that into account, so as I previously stated in the previous slide, there is $3,234,203.47 in revenue yet to be booked. So that's why I take into account here, looking at the unallocated line. So basically what you're looking at is, if you look at unallocated, it's showing $7.9 million. What needs to post, of course, if approved on Monday, there will be additional $1 million, which will drop that down $1 million. Take into account the funds being moved for the START project to FY 26, and then also take into account the funds that we're still coming in revenue. And so that's $5,094,203.47 that you're backing out. So really, this is budgeted numbers. What you have available and unallocated to actually spend is $2,818,768.53 and unallocated. And then there are several projects that are administered by other programs, other county departments, and so I'll try to answer any questions you have about any of the information I just provided.
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Tyson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So hypothetically, because you said that there's a cutoff that we have to where we have to utilize this funding by a certain date, correct?
So I want to make a distinction. So the $65 million that we received in the American Rescue Plan, American Rescue Plan funds, those dollars have to be expended or encumbered by December 2026. But for example, we're talking about the revenue replacement right now. We're talking about the freed capacity. Those dollars, revenue replacement, we've already reconciled that. So on the ARPA side of the ledger, we've already booked those public safety salaries, like for the sheriff's office. So that part is done. We've met the requirement for ARPA. I don't want to use we didn't supplant, but the dollars are now in general fund because we budget for our employees for 100%.
Yeah, but these here is what I mean.
No. So these funds are tied to freed capacity pre-pandemic salaries. So that calculation I talked about, how we claim so many employees per pay period, we claim about $400,000 a pay period for our staff for this particular project. So we've budgeted $38 million over the life of ARPA, but we've been booking about $400,000 a pay period. And so to date, we've booked about $35 million. We still have about $3 million more to book. So the funds here, these don't expire. What expires is what's in the ARPA allocation. Does that make sense?
So if I can, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So these funds, technically speaking, would be available for whatever allocation we want to make with no expiration on that.
Yes, these are general fund dollars.
Okay.
Oh, no, I was just telling, thanks to Ty, who did this from nobody else in the state, and then they followed him. By moving it over here, there is no expiration, and we did the expiration on the December, encumbered all of that.
Yes, we met the requirement. Yes, we
So this is just freed up, you can use whenever. There's no deadline that you gotta have it by 2026. That was
You'll
kind of
see
what.
anything reappropriated
Right.
coming through August.
Yeah, so you're good.
Additional questions on this for Mr. Vaught? Commissioners? A couple questions from the chair. The employee child care, the daycare, that was for facility, or is that paying something else?
That was a facility renovation cost, and there's some remaining dollars in there for some utilities.
Okay, the emergency shelter generator?
So I don't want to, some of these are administered by other programs, so I don't want to take Amanda's fire. She wants to make a comment about it. But there were actually two different projects for generators. There's one that's budgeted in revenue replacement, and there was one that was budgeted in freed capacity. There are two different pots of money, one 1.8, one 1.7.
Right, and so what emergency shelter are we talking about?
Do you have the breakdown, Amanda?
Are these for,
These are for the hurricanes.
The hurricanes.
so they are sitting over at EMC and we roll them out when we have emergency shelters at like the rec centers?
No, these are for generators at the different emergency shelters,
The rec centers, yes.
rec centers,
So, yeah, that's what I mean, so the rec
And the
centers
schools.
and the schools.
that are on location at a rec center or at a,
Yes.
okay, we don't own either one of those, right? But that's our property. That's our asset, but we don't own the property it's sitting on.
Rec center or
Either one, rec center or school.
schools. Yeah, but when we're doing that because they're emergency shelters, and technically for the schools, we in this day and age, we do own it because we fund the capital. And so we need to have emergency generators for, I guess, the last hurricane that came through. Not the most recent one, the most major one. And we had a project to have emergency generators that ran after the power went out.
Understand, I guess mine, going back to what I've always, Mr. Moorfield reminds us of, is that we can't invest in something we're making capital improvements to something we don't own. So we're improving their asset. And he's not here to answer the question, so it's fine. I was trying to understand if those were mobile, they sat over at the EMC, or they were actually the permanent generators that are sitting at a school or at a rec center. If that's the case, then we're... Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, and I think this one goes to services more so than improving their particular piece of property. I think what we looked at is the cost of trying to get them out there from time she can lay, but the delay in getting them out there was just...
I'm not,
Yeah.
again, I'm just clear, I just always hear Mr. Moorfield say we can't invest capital in an asset we don't own, which is the whole point of what's going on with Pauline Jones School. Can't invest in it if we don't own it.
And there is a draft memorandum of understanding or agreement that will be between the county and the Board of Education for these.
So they're not in place yet.
No.
They're not in place yet. There are POs for these generators, and some of the generators are coming in. But the electrical work is being done on for the installation of the generators. It's in progress.
So then I would ask, and again, Mr. Moorfield's not here, but the timing of that MOU, because I would think that we'd have an MOU in place before we would spend money against improving somebody else's asset. So it's just a note, just need to make sure we're seeing an MOU that comes forward to the board to make sure that we're identified. So when they sell the school back to us, they're not making us pay for a generator. Just point.
40 years.
Other question, the permanent supportive housing property acquisition, so there's $2.2 million that is set aside for?
Permanent supportive housing acquisition. So we were in the process of looking at community development, so that community development is in the process of looking for property for expansion for things such as transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, workforce housing. And so we had come to the board previously and asked for an allocation so as we look for opportunities that we would have sufficient financing. Of course, we would bring any type of recommendation back to the board for permission on how to move forward with that before we did anything, but that was an allocation asked for, specifically permanent supportive housing, which we've assessed as a need in our region, consolidated plan, and so forth.
And to tie to that, and then back to the home fund balance of 4.6 million, or 4.1, I think it was. That's the same, you would use those home dollars potentially for that as well.
Yes, sir. And we also use home dollars, well, for home not renovations, we can get myself in trouble. Home rehabs. Let me say that home. We don't renovate, we rehab. And then also we do some development financing with that as well. But yes, sir, we are, fortunately, we do an annual action plan each year, community development, but this year is a great year because we are in the midst of doing a consolidated plan. And so we are doing some long-range planning right now on how to effectively use the funds to make sure that we're meeting the HUD requirements, but also meeting this board's priorities.
But those dollars don't have any requirements because they're unrestricted funds.
For the
$2.2 million is set aside for property acquisition.
That's correct. It doesn't
So
have...
hypothetically, if we wanted to move that to an economic development to allow us to acquire sites or options, and those, we could allocate part of those dollars to that. It's unrestricted.
Yes, sir, it's general funds, so any reason the government could expend funds for public purpose.
Okay. And then my last comment, and I don't know if it's on there, it's just on the sheet I'm looking at. So do we have the emergency short-term shelter program on there? Because you don't have it on there.
What all you have right now is the White Flag Shelter
Okay.
Program.
It was just on the sheet that I'm looking at, and it was for the program that we were going to do. We're going to allocate some dollars against before we went to the Salvation Army. It's not on your sheet.
Oh, yes,
It's-
yes, sir.
We
Yes,
got it
sir.
on the one that I'm looking at.
Yes, sir.
And then, last question, the county, the Ignite program, which is a great program, this dollar amount that's allocated against it, $557,000, what's the annual cost to that? And then when that what's the annual cost of the Ignite program? And how many years does that 557 get us?
I don't want to throw a number at you and be incorrect, but if you give me a couple months, I can get the number for you. The annual cost. We are currently in the 4th cohort. I can do an average and project for you. It's a little off because we have different amounts of students who are in each cohort. So we could average like a number of 30, for example, and do it that
I
way.
appreciate that. My concern is that we use ARP funds to stand up a program that then becomes a general fund that this board never says we need to go. It comes through the budget process, through the department, gets allocated, and we don't really have visibility unless we ask for it.
I will say that based on the number of students who come in, we know that we're in the summer right now, which is the larger season. We have non-traditional students who are just by the nature of it being spring and the fall. We will make it through
I'm not questioning the program.
We'll
I'm
make
just
it.
looking, again, this is a dollars and numbers. That's
Yes.
all. The program is wonderful. It's great.
Oh, yes.
I'm just trying to understand, this is a pot of money that ends at some point.
Correct.
And the board has to make a decision.
Correct.
We're going to allocate general fund dollars, not freed capacity dollars, but true
Correct.
general fund tax dollars to it. So I'll shift back to the commissioners, Commissioner Tyson and then Vice Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I'm a little confused, so maybe you can help me with this. So you're saying that there are general fund dollars here, and you've got the budget from 2025, but wouldn't that mean, one, that they would need to be included in our adopted budget? And since they are general fund dollars, wouldn't these programs be subject to annual review and reallocation on a budgetary basis?
Basically, when the ARP committee was created, the ARP committee, of course, had oversight or recommendation authority for the dollars. When freed capacity was brought as an option for the county, at that time there was a decision at that time for the ARP committee to retain recommendation authority with the funds to ensure and of course to also make sure the public knew that we weren't taking American Rescue Plan dollars and using them for like general government purposes, for example, and making sure that we were using them in basically in the same spirit as what they were awarded for the county. And so we've done projects that we would have otherwise have done with American Rescue Plan dollars, but we've removed the timing constraint of December 31st, 2026 from them, basically.
Mr. Chairman, if I can clarify.
And then I need to move to the Vice Chairwoman.
Okay, and maybe I'm not understanding, but like, my understanding, and I'm going to go back and use lap salaries as an example. If we budget in an annual budget for salary positions that don't get expended, those salaries then go back to the general fund for reallocation by the board.
Lap salaries goes back down into unassigned fund balance.
Which
It
is
goes
subject to
through on the
reallocation by the board.
Yeah, or help budgeting the budget,
Right, and then so the following year, those lap salaries, whatever that fund balance would be, those lapsed salaries would be subject to a reallocation in the next year's budget.
Okay, I'm going to use this, I'm going to see if I can understand your question. Like for the 24 audit, the fund balance ending was about 20 million. Okay, of that amount, that's fund balance, that's unassigned. Okay, out of that, the board brought back to the board reappropriations, and I think that was probably about
$8,457,000.
We have lapsed salaries of 24 of about 12 million, Gaffney. So really, of that 20 million, only about 12 million really stayed in there. But of that 12 million, aside of reappropriations, anything else that the board used fund balance for this year, like the sheriff's office cars, and I think there was 2 more items when I looked at it.
So connecting that with this process, would it not be also similar where if there was a budgeted item for 2025, now that we've already confirmed that this is general fund dollars not tied to specific allocation, then would that not be subject to that same process and review as any other general fund dollar?
It would roll, anything that's not used will roll into fund balance, and then I believe the board wanted to see an assigned freed up capacity on the audit. So this year on the audit, whatever's come down is the freed up. You'll see the assigned fund balance, like this year, I think Robin showed 16 million.
We didn't have it on the actual audit.
It didn't have to do it on the audit, but
2024, but we will be reporting, I'll make that decision.
In April, we transferred $16,866,036 out of unassigned fund balance and put it in freed up capacity. So anything that's here that doesn't get spent, it rolls over into fund balance automatically because it's in part of fund balance.
And then it would have to be reallocated either by this board in this budget, or y'all would bring it back in between the budget cycle for this board to review.
Yes.
Hold on one second. I think Commissioner Adams, I'm going to let Commissioner Adams try to answer your question. No, he's trying to answer your
Let
question.
me try to answer your question, because it's not done the same way. The way the board did it was that because these were ARP funds and we knew they were one-time expenditures, so we had to put it somewhere. It was put in the general fund, but it was restricted to just ARP funds, so it didn't roll over, it didn't fall down into the general fund where you get reallocated every year. Basically, what the board did was to say, it's freed up capacity, put it in the general fund because you got to have it somewhere. And so they moved it into general fund, but it was still for this board, whatever board, that it would be ARP funds to be spent out of ARP funds, and so the ARP committee would make those, not going back to the general fund. It didn't fall down into.
So to clarify, it's freed up capacity, it's in the general fund, that doesn't roll down to fund balance.
Right.
So it stays in basically a restricted fund.
And I get that, Mr. Chairman. I guess what I don't understand is why would we not zero that back out and now this board approve that allocation as recommended from the ARP committee? That's my real question.
I think we're talking 2 different things. We have the ARP committee, the ARP fund balance as part of the amount that has to be spent by December 31st, 2026. That's I'm gonna say that's the federal piece. That's like the grant piece. And then on this other side, we have the freed up capacity that we just recently assigned at about $17 million that we were assigned in fund balance. But that's freed up capacity, but it's assigned. So any expenditures that are not spent, they stay there in that fund balance. And then if we have expenditures that need to be, let's say like we have POs or anything like that, or contracts, that has to be brought back for reappropriation. But that amount stays in that fund balance. And it's segregated, for lack of a better term, in that part, and only the board can make changes to that. We also have assigned fund balance for economic development. The board is the only one can make changes to that. So any appropriation or reappropriation of this money or changes has to come back to the board because it's assigned fund balance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that's what I was getting at, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair. Mrs. Milwee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel like, thank you, Todd, you explained it correctly, just as we have a finance committee, policy committee, and just as this information, because there was some confusion when we had the community impact grant, the overall board will decide, but it first goes through those that are on the ARP committee. We discussed this just like we did the community grants, and then it goes to the overall board. Just like when the finance has to review things for recommendations through that process, but ARP money works just like he said, a little bit different. Same way you all review other things, because the board had allocated community impact grants and this information, our board, meaning the ARP committee, would recommend and review, and then it comes to the overall board.
Yeah, and that's exactly, so at the end of this fiscal year.
This money comes to the ARP.
This money will come first to ARP for reappropriation, then it'll go to finance, and then more than likely, that based on approval, it'll come to the full board at an agenda session and go to like the regular meeting. So there's a couple of extra steps for this that we don't have for like the regular unassigned fund balance.
Any other questions on that, comments? Vice Chairman, you good?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, yeah, before we were just going from ARP, it can still go to finance, but as we stated, my understanding is if we're going by like where we did it before, just like community grant, it goes to ARP. What we decide, because we're recommending, just like they recommend, then it goes to the board. It doesn't go through finance, was my understanding. Not these funds, because I thought that's what the board, when we put this in here to have the authority, that is what Ty is talking about.
So-
This information, like community fundings for the community grants, it goes to we review this fundings, just like finance reviews the other ones. And then from here, that's what we did with community impact, my understanding, then it goes to overall board. That was my understanding of what was approved.
Commissioner Franklin.
Thank you. Clarence, this is the first year of this particular item?
Yes, because
Okay.
what I was concerned about is we were saying freed up capacity, but it's part of the general fund.
So this hasn't been through audit yet, then?
No.
See, I'm putting on my old auditor's hat.
No.
And
So the auditor should be asking us questions during the audit process. Why did the board take action to pull out this freed up capacity and make it
See,
assigned?
I'm thinking capital reserve fund, that's what
Right.
I'm thinking.
It's similar, but it's not restricted, it's more assigned because you all have the right to change it at any time you want to.
My suggestion is just check with auditors
Okay.
before they come in. Seriously, I mean,
I
that's
got
just my
you.
thinking, okay?
I got you. And you and I have a conversation about that.
All right.
You know.
All right, so any other questions on ARP/freed up capacity? So this is going to be another one that we're going to see back in August, September, that will flow back through the committee. Commissioner Adams?
I guess, I forgot, Mr. Chairman, because you did ask that question about the housing and the $4 million in community development. I think we put it here because when you're looking for some of this housing, property has risen. Community development can only do the tax assessed value. I think this was in case you needed a little bit more to be able to buy this property to be able to do that. So that's why it's here and not over in community development, even though it's talked about, I understand.
Yeah, no, I knew it couldn't be blended. I'm just trying to identify what was there and if we have a plan to use it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions on ARP, freed up capacity?
You can use it as free late for that, when we to that stage. I read your mind, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, anything else on ARP? All right, we are through items 3 and 4. Thank you, Mr. Vaught.
Yes, sir.
And truly thank you for all the creative work with this and keeping us in compliance. So we moved through item 3 and 4. I would say we would check the board's temperature at this point. We've got a debt model with all the major projects, as well as funding sources for those major projects, general government, as well as the water and Crown Center debt models to go through, and then community support. So I know we've been going at this since 1 o'clock. So we were scheduled to be here till 7:30, y'all.
Ready to go, Mr. Chairman, let's keep rolling.
Board. So here's the question. So we have 2 more meetings that we need to move through the rest of this, give any scenarios to the manager that we're looking at, and then move to hopefully a decision that we have to make some decisions and prioritizations, and then get a vote. So 2 meetings don't, probably not going to give us enough time, but we'll see. We can, what are your thoughts, Commissioner Patel?
I'm willing to keep on going. I think my personal opinion, numbers can get a little wacky, so if one person is feeling a little tired, I would just feel a little bit more cautious and make sure we don't miss anything. That's all I'm saying.
Commissioner Adams?
Mr. Chairman, if I can make, I guess, a general kind of statement. And I know you want to keep this to 2 hours, but I think even if you do the next one, if you go ahead and if you want to do it for 3 hours, that's fine. But I think when you're looking at staff and they got children at home, if they made arrangements with daycare and all of that, they got to get there for that. But if we tell them it's going to be 3 hours, they can make those arrangements in advance. I don't think it's fair to tell people we're going to do 2 hours and then they got things at home that they're not really dealing with, plus the numbers, I think, that Mr. Patel talked about. But that's my concern.
Any other thoughts, Commissioners? So Commissioner Fairclough?
I agree with that.
So a couple of thoughts also. So our next meeting is 17 June. We have an evening meeting. We've not done one of these in the morning. Historically, Tuesdays, we could look at a 9 to 11 like we do our board meetings. Is that a better option? And then we're in the work window to Commissioner Adams' point. We can move to 9 to 11. We can keep that 5:30 if we need to keep it just on the books. And I guess we got to cancel 48 hours out. So
No, we can cancel at any time. I just have to notice a new meeting within 48 hours.
Excuse me.
So we could have the ability to do a 9 to 11 on the morning of the 17th and hopefully push through. We could say, that gives us 2 hours. I don't know how people's court schedules and business schedules, but I just thought I'd offer that up as an alternate time.
Well, if you don't want me to get killed, go 11 to 1. My wife got a doctor's appointment that morning with her calling out or whatever. But and we can go down to 11. Hopefully we'll be finished.
I was just trying to give another option.
11 to 1 is
As long as we're
fine.
done by 1, because we have one hour.
Yeah, so 11 to 1, and then we're bumped right into an unhoused meeting. We've got an unhoused
Oh, I
board
forgot.
meeting. I'm just trying to give an option that will give us another window, and it'll be during the work day. So could we, County Manager Greer, thoughts on that, your staff?
Yeah, that would be fine. 11 to 1.
Commissioners, does that work? 11 to 1 on the 17th. We'll keep the 5:30 just in case. We can always cancel it if we need to cancel it.
Andrea, mark my calendar.
Is that, I'm looking at all the people that have, all of us up here have day jobs.
I got my wife at work.
I
got some appointments I want to wrap.
Okay, I'm doing the second.
I'll take your
Ms.
spot.
Shaw, I know we've got to finish next Thursday, so if we have Tuesday, are we going to be able to complete everything by Thursday?
It's gonna be depending on how much we can get through. So, I mean, we've scheduled an extra meeting, we were doing them in 2-hour blocks. I mean, Tuesday will give us 4 hours if we use both meetings, potentially.
Keep
I
moving.
mean, that's our options. I think we do 11 to 1 to get us extra capacity, because we went over tonight, we lost an hour of time tonight. And then we hold the 5:30 to 7:30 for additional capacity if we need to. We'll see what we get. I would encourage you to come with, go ahead and send any questions you have on the debt model to Ms. Shaw ahead of time and have that feedback so we can eliminate questions in the meeting, and we can just make directions. And then, Madam Clerk, if you will send out the roll-up list so that we'll have that tomorrow to make sure we know the moving items, anything that we're going to have to discuss. And then the other big one is just community funding. I would recommend, County Manager, that some of the scenarios that we've laid out, potentially we want to, especially the ones that are impacting the general fund, maybe not the debt model, that we begin to be ready to talk about those if we get to that point. So some of the changes that we talked about. Board, is that acceptable for direction? Does that give everybody enough, County Manager, does that give you all enough direction and guidance? Ms. Shaw, do you need anything else from us? We really appreciate, I know this has been a longer process than normal, but I think it's been good, and we appreciate all the work that you've done on this. Ms. Tebby, if you can make sure we go ahead and notice that meeting, 11 to 1 on the 17th.
Do it first thing in the morning.
Okay. Anything else that we want to come before tonight, or any questions? If not, Madam Chair, or Madam Vice Chair, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. Got a motion to adjourn, properly seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. All
Ladies in
opposed?
favor, Vice Chairwoman Jennifer.
Come on here.
Chairman Debbie Ayer, Commissioner Patel, Commissioner Fairclough, and Commissioner Adams, 30 in opposition, Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.